much controversy and a lot of deception. You don't know who's coming through with the light and reflection, and whose mouth is mumbling, trick, knowledge, deceptive. Shabazz, break it down with the proper perspective. Yeah.
What's going on, everybody? How y'all doing? This is your brother Shabazz. This is your brother Shabazz with the proper perspective. We're going live here today, Tuesday. What's today? Today is Thursday. Come on in, everybody, and hit the like button. Hit the like button, hit the share button, subscribe, like I say, down at the bottom of the screen, at least here on YouTube. Like, hype, share, and subscribe. That's the name of the game today. Now, hopefully you can hear me. I'm going to try to see if I can get this whole situation working. I know I got my mic situated, kind of, sort of. I think I got my mic situated, kind of, sort of. I got green lights on everything, so we're going to pray for the best. We're going to hope for the best. Especially if you're coming in, I do believe I should be absolutely straight on YouTube, but if you're coming in on Twitch, Facebook, TikTok, or whatever, and you can't hear me, let me know. You're better off coming over to youtube.com/@theproperperspective, but I feel you if you're not gonna. What are we talking about today? We're talking about Dana with the data. We're talking about Professor Small, and we're talking about Tariq Nasheed and the FBA. I do believe the ship is sinking. Shout out to Minister Nkala on TikTok for joining in, or it looks like he's joining in, or watching, viewing, something like that. I don't know. Again, I'm terrible with TikTok. I just do this to try to get you to come on over to youtube.com/@theproperperspective. But we're going to get this thing started. We're going to get this thing started today. And let me say this. One of the ongoing confrontational conversations, debates, if you will, in today's Black community, especially online, not so much offline, but everything is centering around Tariq Nasheed. Professor Smalls has been brought into the fray a little bit here and there, every now and then. Dana with the data, who I normally don't agree with, but I'm pleasantly surprised. But everything is circling around this broader conversation about who we are. I tend to call it the identity crisis that never went away. Are we African Americans? Are we foundational Black Americans? Are we Black Americans? Now, I don't know if you consider yourself a Pan-Africanist or not. You don't have to. You don't have to consider yourself a Pan-Africanist. You don't have to be a Pan-Africanist. I think the Pan-Africanists are being used to create the wedge in the fight, because whoever this FBA origin story is, COINTELPRO or not, they know that Pan-Africans do a whole lot of standing up for the community. But anyhow, what makes this conversation so important is not so much the personalities, but we gonna have to talk about the personalities. It's the ideas that are being presented. So yes, we're talking about questions that circle African identity, African American identity, Black American reparations, diaspora politics, diaspora wars is what everybody likes to call it. But these questions, these topics, they circle a very real issue. What produces or does not produce Black political power? These conversations are very serious. They deserve to be taken seriously. So at least today, I think I try to do this every time I go live, but you know, sometimes I may not. I may falter every now and then. But so hopefully today we're going to move beyond just personalities. We're going to examine some substantive arguments. I'll be asking questions. Shout out to everybody that hit the like button on the live for For TikTok, I feel you, thank you, appreciate you, family. I don't even know what it really means because I ain't monetized over there, but thank you, appreciate it. But again, here's the question. What does history tell us? What does history teach us? What does successful Black political organizing even look like in the past and today? Now, here's a question for you. How much of our thinking is influenced by historical, documented interference like COINTELPRO? And how much of it is simply blind speculation? Now, I got an even better question for you, and I hope I plan to address and answer this. But can a movement succeed without real grassroots organizing? Now, I know once you use the M word, movement, I know a lot of the FBA community says, see, you just don't understand. You're not getting it right. We're not a movement. We a lineage. I'm sorry to inform you. You can't have it both ways, and we're going to be talking about that. As African American, we are an ethnicity. I'm not related to every African American. So we don't necessarily have that kind of lineage. It's not what lineage means. But so here's a question. Can lasting political victories, if that's what we say we are about, if lasting political victories can be achieved without coalition building? Can you achieve anything without building a coalition? So those are the questions I want to explore, because there again, whether you agree with me or Tariq or Dana with the data or Professor James Small or someone else entirely, I've had people ask me questions. Well, what do you think about Amos Wilson? Okay, cool. Well, what do you think about? Again, let me focus. The standard shouldn't necessarily be who delivers the most interesting or entertaining soundbite. The standard should be a lot simpler. Does the idea, because I don't care what part of the conscious community you may feel yourself positioned in. The question is, the standard is, does the idea, does the path, does the lane that you sit in, does it move us closer to obtaining, to maintaining real political power? And that's what we're going to talk about. And we're going to talk about that as it relates to my sister, Dana with the data, and her critique of Tariq Nasheed. So shout out to, let me see who we got up in the building. Shout out to Mr. K for the super chat. Love that. For the Pan-African Terminator. That's my nickname. If you don't know it already, if you're here on TikTok, Facebook and whatnot, they do call me the Pan-African Terminator. They call my cousin the Pan-African Peacemaker. Y'all go check out his page too. Dr. Dennis Asar Winkler on YouTube. So shout out to, what is this? Rael. Okay, I'm not gonna be able to get your name right. Rael says oi and heli. Okay, or hello. Hello. Shout out to Rael. Thank you for showing up. Please hit the like button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and hit all, because we don't like the personalized versions. But again, so what are we talking about? I'm going to share my screen, family. Now, again, if you're not on YouTube, you can't see, I don't know if you can hear what's going to be played on the screen. I would love it if you came on over to YouTube. But just, rock with me. I'll let you know what's going on during the video. So we're going to play this and we're going to talk about this. We're going to try to anyhow. Now, especially if you're on YouTube, let me know if y'all can hear this, because I don't know if it plays correctly.
So
let's see.
RIP to H. Brown. Joshua Brown always mentions him. He always references him, right? So I just wanted to highlight that whether you agree with his tactics or not, he was a freedom fighter. How many of us can say that? No, I'm not a freedom fighter. I'm a content creator. I just choose to have content on Black culture, on politics. No, I'm not a freedom fighter. I'm a content creator. I just choose to have content on Black culture, on politics, geopolitics, the law. I bring people, American citizens who want to get their stories out onto my platform. Yes. No, I'm not sacrificing my life, my livelihood to go against the government. I pay my taxes.
So y'all heard that. At least on YouTube, y'all heard that. Thank you to Gives the Truth, who said, yes, we heard that. Thank you. Appreciate that. Now, if you're on one of the other social media platforms, you probably didn't hear it. I'll give you a very quick, brief summary what Dana with the data was saying. She's talking about, well, she gives credence to, she gives a shout out to the brother who's now an ancestor, H. Rap Brown. Now, now that will tell you, because I said ancestor, that will tell you, I'm not telling you that this is some brand new breaking news type of thing, but this is very important regardless of that. We are in 2026. This video popped up around 2025 at the passing of Jamil Abdullah Al-Amin, which is a brother more people know by the name H. Rap Brown. Now, he did pass away. He transitioned November 23rd, 2025, while still incarcerated at Butner, North Carolina. He was 82 years old, serving a life sentence that his family, his legal team, his supporters were still actively challenging. Now, why am I talking about that? Because that's what a freedom fighter is. Now, I'm going to tell you, the same way Dana said, I'm no freedom fighter. I'm going to tell you straight up, I'm not a freedom fighter. I don't have it in me. And you can say whatever you want. You can characterize that however you want. I don't care. I say that for a very specific reason. I respect freedom fighters. I appreciate our freedom fighters. I admire and look up to our freedom fighters. I'm not going to cosplay a freedom fighter. I'm not going to act like I'm something that I'm not. So let me see something. So what's going on? Let's see. Soul Sister Jackie Brown. Okay, silly comment. Silly comment. This is going to get interesting. Soul Sister Jackie Brown is saying, I'm not African. Saying to me, not making their own personal proclamation, trying to convince me I'm not African. I must be FBA. I have to be FBA. Again, you'll see as we get deeper into this. Soul Sister is new to my environment, my channel. I don't accept the term. I don't accept the label FBA. Now, I'm wise enough to know you can't ever say never. So I'm not going to say I will never accept it. I just don't foresee myself capitulating to that hate group cult. Not even for my reparations check, which they ain't working on anyhow. But let me go back to this video. So Dana with the data, her characterization is why I'm talking about this. She characterizes a freedom fighter, and it's spot on. So before I even add anything, she tells you what a freedom fighter is. She tells you, I should say, she tells you what a freedom fighter does. She tells you what she does instead. I pay my taxes. I create content. See, we ain't real people. What they say, real eyes recognize real lies. Why play with it? She tells you what she's not willing to do. A freedom fighter is like, I see the risk, I see the danger, I'm going to do it anyway. That's the test, that's the litmus test. So when we get around to, let's define this thing precisely. And I really want to key up on this. And it's not, I mean, part of it is because if you don't know, some of you know, I'm a retired teacher. I taught in the English field, the English department. And I'm only saying that because that means words, that suggests that words mean something to me. I like words. I'm a lover of terminologies. I really like words. I hold on to the meanings of words. I would never cosplay a freedom fighter. That is disrespectful. A freedom fighter is someone whose direct confrontation with state power is serious enough that the government spends real resources trying to neutralize you. A freedom fighter is a person who is the target of surveillance, prosecution, imprisonment as a direct consequence of organizing the people, of organizing the community, of doing organizing work that materially serves the community, not merely commenting on it. I'm a commentator. I'm a content creator. I'm not a freedom fighter. Dana says, I'm not a freedom fighter. We both are in agreement. H. Rap Brown was a freedom fighter. Why are we talking about this? Because somebody was trying to say that the de facto leader, and we'll get into that term, dear leader is a freedom fighter. Tariq is not a freedom fighter. You are insulting the legacy, the lineage of freedom fighting. Why is H. Rap Brown, or better known, why is Imam Jamil Al-Amin, why does he earn the title of freedom fighter? Mississippi Freedom Summer voter registration in 1964. Student I'm sorry, I can't remember what SNCC stands for. It eludes me, but the SNCC Alabama voter registration project in 1996, that got him under surveillance. SNCC national chairman in 1967. There was a secret 1967 FBI memo that specifically called for his neutralization. And yeah, that's under that COINTELPRO program that everybody swears it doesn't exist anymore. That's the same program that surveilled, that targeted King, Malcolm, Black Panthers, because all of those people were freedom fighters. Now, H. Rap Brown in 1967 gave a speech at Cambridge. That speech got him shot in the head by police, And a riot hadn't even started. A confrontation hadn't even started. And they charged him with inciting the riot anyway. Congress passed a federal law named after him to criminalize his style of organizing. He did 5 years in Attica. That's a freedom fighter. You got Assata Shakur. That's a freedom fighter. Highway shootout with state troopers. Cuba gave her asylum. You got Geronimo Jajaka Pratt. 27 years before his conviction was overturned when the FBI, when the LAPD withheld evidence, finally came to light. These freedom fighters, that's not Tariq. I'm sorry. That's nobody. No, nobody in the FBA movement is willing to do that kind of work. Mumia Abu Jamal spent decades on death row. His case is still contested. Now, he was a brother that did do a lot of media activity, but he still put his life on the line. You got the Angola 3. They organized a chapter. Remember, Tariq says we're not an organization. FBA people say we're not an organization. Okay, if you just a lineage, then you can't be a freedom fighter. Freedom fighters build something. The Angola Three organized a chapter of the Black Panther Party while they were inside the Louisiana State Penitentiary. They were placed in solitary for decades. These are people who are freedom fighters. A brother by the name of Woodfox did 40 years. That's the longest solitary confinement on record in the United States, at least. That's the resume, the characterizations, the activities of a freedom fighter. And just like Dana said, I'm a content creator. Tariq Nasheed is a content creator. He ain't no freedom fighter. That ain't even a shot. That's not a dagger. That's not an insult. That's a fact. You shouldn't even want to be labeled a freedom fighter if you're not willing to do that kind of work. So I don't know where FBA get this weird energy. Every time they hear anything that is stated as a fact about their de facto leader, they get their pennies in a bunch. Shout out to Soul Sister Jackie Brown. I subscribed. I will be back. Thank you. I appreciate that. Now you can stick around. What again? I love these. People think they have these great challenges. And you know why? Because they've heard other people speak them. Now, if you stick around my channel, be it on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Instagram, TikTok, you will learn, sister, because Soul Sister says, what Africans do for Black Americans. I'm waiting. Go look at my other 5 videos. It's an extensive list. What's up to Doom Mega? Peace to you, brother. Let me say this. We need you on more than 2 days. You know, I used to try to do that. I did. I was trying to do 5 days a week, but I swear it's a grind. I'm going to tell you it's a grind. I don't know that I'm up for that. But eventually, maybe I will kick it up a little bit more. So again, now we have this idea of what is a freedom fighter. And I'm going to get back to that question, Sister Soldier, or Soul Sister. I'm sorry if I'm messing up your name. I'm going to get to that question, but I have covered that extensively. But so now let's deal with some more commentary from Dana with the data. So let me make sure that I still got that. Okay, let's see. Doom Mega says, are you seeing videos with FBA going after Joy Degree? No, I haven't yet. Feel free to send me one. I tell you this, there is no one that FBA will spare other than Tariq Nasheed and the FBA proponents. So I'm not surprised that they're now going after Joy Degree. They go after everybody who is doing or has done something for Black progress. That's what they do. That's why other people start saying, COINTELPRO, CIA. You can't have that many beefs with that many people unless there's a targeted program. It's like a heat-seeking missile. So Doommaker says, Baz, it's all love. It's so great to see you and Dr. Dog doing the tag team with the info of the day. Hold on, brother. I'm going to find that link for Joy. Appreciate you. Yes, I want it. Bring it on. I will cover it. So, okay, let me get this. Let me share this screen. Let me share this screen and get back to this video that we're talking about. So let's see what she has to say, what else she has to say.
Sort of. But let's get into the foundational Black American, because that's what I'm mainly, and then come to find out right about now, I should have went in portrait style. And this is my dilemma, right? Of me being indecisive. I just should have stayed in portrait style. I'm going to say yes, he is. Now I should have went in portrait style. And this is my dilemma, right? Of me being indecisive. I just should have stayed in portrait style. But I want to start off with Tariq Nasheed. And I'm going to say this because the question, let me get my notes out. Is Tariq Nasheed a grifter? I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say yes, he is. And actually, let me share this. I won't be all over the place. I'm going to say Tariq Nasheed is a grifter. What is a grifter? A grifter is a person who engages in petty or small scale swindling. We're all hustling. You think I'm going to be up here talking on YouTube and not get paid and not be monetized? He's monetized. FBA. He trademark it. He sell merchandise for a profit. Now he chooses to highlight the importance of Black lineage and Black culture and Black history because he has done that in his hidden history documentaries. And I appreciate that. I buy all of his documentaries. And
so we're gonna pause it right there. That's a good little section. Let me stop sharing, get back to the big screen. So you heard, again, YouTube heard, other brothers and sisters may not have heard. I'll recap. Shout out to everybody watching. Shout out to Brittany for watching. North NBPP. I don't know why I can't get those initials down. The Norfolk, Virginia chapter of the New Black Panther Party. I got to say it that way, or else it just don't come out the head. But shout out to everybody. Let me see. Some other names. I can't really see your names on TikTok. Users. Some don't have names, but shout out to everybody. So let's talk about this. So she says she's giving her definition of a grifter. I like that. I agree with that. Now, earlier I said, look, I'm not taking no shots. I said, when we clarify the difference between content creators and freedom fighters, that's an objective standard statement. That's not taking shots. Now, I might start to take a few shots now. So let's, I openly admit that. She says, is Tariq a grifter? And she says, I'm going to say yes, he is a grifter. Now, she says, what is a grifter? A grifter is a person who engages in petty or small scale swindling. We all hustling. That's what she says. She said, you think I'm going to be up here talking on YouTube and not get paid and not be monetized? He has monetized FBA. I think that's part of where she's putting this grift at. He trademarked it. He sells merchandise for it. Now, I'll say this, because I've watched a few other videos with Dana with the data, and I have taken issue with several of her commentaries. On this particular issue, I'm going to say, look, her definition of grifter, at the very least, it's functionally correct. Now, I know FBA is going to say, no, he's not. You can't say that. I will say, okay, maybe, just maybe it's a tad bit incomplete. Maybe. And I'll say that because the real test for the grift isn't necessarily monetization. Monetization could be a part of it. But after all, every content creator at least tries monetize, myself included. So monetization is not necessarily the rubber stamp. It's not the straw that broke the camel's back. Now, whether the product that you're selling delivers what you're promising, now we're getting into grifter territory. What do you mean by that, Shabazz? FBA as a label, as an identity, as the lineage, came about as the methodology to acquire reparations. Now it has morphed, and it has morphed multiple times, and it has morphed because FBA as a lineage, a movement, an ideology, a label, a culture, or anything else, a cult, is not going to acquire reparations, is not going to achieve reparations, is not going to obtain reparations. So it was created for the purpose of getting reparations, and it has gotten nowhere. Now we're into grifter territory. So if your need to delineate is in order to secure reparations, but your need to delineate, your work of delineation, never turns into any actual policy or policy plan or policy agenda, then once again, we're looking at a case of grift. Now, I think, now that may be my own personal position, but at the same time, I think what I am articulating up until this point is why Dana said she sees him as a grifter. But I can't put my words into her mouth. But I will say this, whether I agree or disagree with Tariq, it's not even the point. That's besides the point. I don't have to agree with Tariq. The real question is this: what is the work being done? Is it being done directly or is it being done indirectly? But what is the work? Direct work looks like an actual group of people organizing, putting pen to paper, drafting policy, or formally challenging existing policy. That's direct work. Now, that's a different category from being, how shall I say, a mouthpiece, looking for a paycheck. But I'm not even saying that's the totality of it. You can have an indirect plan. Indirect support counts. There are people, some people I don't even care for personally, professionally, lyrically, who do some legitimate support work. Jay-Z is an example. Now I know, that becomes a real big, issue. There's a lot of people that don't like him. There's a lot of people that do like him. Some people say he is the aspirational model of the hip hop artist. Some people say he is the sellout of the hip hop artistry. But regardless of all of that, he is an example where he has taken his money to materially support some issues, some policy, some programs. That's a real lane. That ain't a freedom fighter. That ain't a leader. So the question for Tariq, or the question, not even for Tariq so much, the question for the people who keep defending him like he is the leader is, what lane does he stand in? Clarify that for us. Because again, he openly says, I'm not the leader. So why y'all all defending him like he was the leader? Now you can even hear in that clip Dana saying, she's giving him a critique, but it's not a total critique. She's not throwing him under the bus. Now, if you want to see somebody throw him under the bus, you might have to stick around on my channel. I might would throw his entire legacy under the bus. Dana ain't doing that. She actually says, I appreciate his work. She says, I buy his documentaries, all of them. I ain't never bought none of them. No, let me take that back. I may have bought one. She says they're very good documentaries. She says, but make no mistake about it, you have people like Professor James Small who have validated those documentaries. She says in one way, shape, form, or another, his documentaries wouldn't have been validated. They wouldn't have been verified. They wouldn't have been accepted and appreciated if he didn't have the elders in the documentaries. That's worth considering. That's worth sitting with. Now, again, Dana concedes that Professor James Smalls has credibility, and that credibility is what gave Tariq's documentaries the weight, the rubber stamp, the sign off, the cosign in the first place. Now, I would suggest that you could only disagree with that if you are really young, so young, or so just out of it that you don't know about Professor James Smalls and his history, his resume. If you have no clue about who he is, then maybe you would be like, well, I don't get it. That's just like, well, I ain't never heard of that song. I ain't never heard of that artist. Maybe it was before your time. But that doesn't take away from the fact that he is an extremely credible individual. And so what that means is credibility may be on the table, but not Professor Small's credibility. That was never in question. Not until somebody got angry, somebody got mad. But until then, Professor Smalls is what gave those documentaries significance. Now, I'm gonna get around to a little bit more of what Dana said, but let me see what's going on in the chat room first before I jump too far. Now let's see. So Gears of Truth says that's how he tricked black people into FBA with reparations talk. And then it morphed into what it is now. And I will be the first to tell you, when I first heard of FBA, I did think it was something that was going to be valuable and meaningful and helpful and supportive in the community. I thought, yes, now we get more people interested in reparations. And even on that topic, because I've had conversations with other Pan-Africanists, and I've met Pan-Africanists that don't believe in reparations. I've met conservative African Americans that don't believe in reparations. So I was genuinely impressed and excited. And then it morphed. I was having conversation with brothers telling me, come out to this event, come out to that event. This is a reparations rally. And I get there and everybody's talking about Black Brits in movies. And I'm like, wait a minute, what? So yes, he tricked people. That is part of the grift. Now, I'm not riding with Soul Sisters. We were never slaves. That was Whitey. Historical revisionists, I don't have a lot of patience for. Okay, so let's see. Doommaker says, you sound like Moors way back when they went that with General Seti. We were never original slaves. Come on, stop slandering. Yeah, I can't deal with that. Like Dane Calloway, the Moors, all of them revisionists trying to deny actual hardcore data. Look, y'all gotta go. Y'all gotta go. That's all I can say about it. But so let's get back into what Dana with the data was saying. Because she says, I think she does actually play it, but she discusses a clip. She discusses a clip, and if you know a little bit about the FBA environment, then you may have seen that clip where she says, I'm gonna play this clip of Tariq Nasheed basically saying that he ain't effing with Professor Smalls anymore. And she says, I'm gonna play the clip of Professor Smalls. We might get around to that part. I don't have the clip of Tariq Nasheed saying he ain't effing with him, but I remember I saw it. I remember that because it popped up on my timeline. I was a little upset because I'm like, I had already like unfollowed the good brother. So I was like, I don't appreciate seeing any of his videos, but people still keep sending me stuff. So it is what it is. So again, this is when we get into the CIA framing a little bit. So Yeah, let's get into the CIA stuff. So let's see if we can push this up to that section of the video and share the screen. And now the screen is trying to act difficult. So let's see if we can resize this and get into some of this conversation about CIA. So we're going to get to this section. Let me make sure I share the screen, family. So go back to the screen. So check out what she says.
FBA is not an organization. It's not a 501c. It's not political aligned. It's not. And he's smart enough to not organize it. It's a hashtag that he's profiting off. And there's nothing wrong with that because the message is very clear and it is necessary. It is. And it's very important because we need to get reacquainted and educated on our lineage, on our history, on our culture. Mm-hmm. Because it's been a complete disconnect. I agree. And the whole fight on why FBA, hashtag FBA is saying, okay, delineate, is really derived out of reparations. Because reparations here in America are only for Black Americans. Okay, so we're gonna pause it there. And this is a good, again, I'm trying to express is there's a lot of good stuff coming out of this video, even though I don't necessarily agree with everything that that Dana with the data says. So again, she says, now this is her word. She said FBA is not an organization, and they all say that. It's not a 501c. We recognize that. She says it's not politically aligned. I may take issue with that. They act like they're not politically aligned. But they sure do like to tell you who not to vote for. So that's one of the reasons I got an issue with that particular statement. She says it's a hashtag. That's one of those cop-outs that I hear them saying all the time. They say it's just a hashtag. They say it's just the lineage. But they don't act like it's just a hashtag. Now, she does say he's profiting off of it. Grift. But see, she says there's nothing wrong with that. So again, what's funny to me is she's offering a critique. She's offering an analysis of Tariq Nasheed and this so-called movement or whatever else you want to call it. I like to call it cult, but anyhow. But because she's giving, to some extent, an almost fair and balanced analysis, that's what grabbed my attention. But the FBA folk, they want to cancel her because of it. See, you're not this, you're not this, you're not that, but you act like this, you act like this, you act like that. Come on. Now, here's something else that I agree with. She, in discussing, our heritage, our history, our culture, she also used the word lineage. I ain't riding with that word. She says, yes, we need to get reacquainted with all of this information. Now, she then conflates being woke, being conscious, being familiar with our history and our story with delineation. I think that's very interesting. I think that's very troublesome. And I say that because now I've gone back and forth. I got some brothers hitting up all my video pages and whatnot, trying to tell me I just don't understand what delineation is. And every time I ask them for a definition, they can't give me one. So not only do I not understand what delineation is, neither do the people that keep talking about it. She is now saying delineation is somehow attached to reparations and knowing your history and your culture.
I would just call that woke, family. I would just say you conscious. I would just say you knowledgeable. Maybe you took an African American history class at one time or another. Maybe you picked up a few books. But so again, let me say it this way. Dana, in this section, to some extent, she's holding maybe two separate things at once. And it is an actually defensible position to hold. It's not inherently contradictory. If we concede, and I'm not saying that I actually do, but if we concede that there is an underlying message in the FBA universe, and if we concede that that message is education about culture, education about self, reparations for African Americans because of slavery and Jim Crow, then we can say, well, that's where they started. So that's not necessarily the problem. Nobody has a problem with that. Well, white folk got a problem with that. But while FBA, here's the problem. As a zeitgeist is one thing. As an organization, as an organizing structure, see, all of that is non-existent. So again, now she's not saying that the underlying message is bad. I might say that. She's saying that the underlying message she is in alignment with. But she's also saying that the messenger who delivered this package of confusion, that's my words. She's saying the messenger lacks the structure to back it up. Now, you can be upset about that, but you can't prove otherwise, at least in the sense that, again, he likes to brag about not having structure. Now, I would go so far as to say, oh, but he has a structure. It's the colors of hiddenness. There's a hidden color to this. That's what I'm going to say. But again, even with this nuanced position that Dana is taking, here's where I take real significant hardcore issue. Number one, she's still clearly sympathetic to the ideology overall, and I'm not. You know, when she says the message is necessary, no, not delineation. That's not necessary. Now, it's necessary to know who you are, to know your history, to be proud of who you are and your history. That's necessary. And if that's all FBA did, I wouldn't be on here, family. I wouldn't be talking about it. So this critique that I'm attending applies to any individual who invokes the idea, Dana included, that in order to be knowledgeable about self, in order to be proud about our history, you have to delineate. That's what I take issue with. If you genuinely believe that your lineage, better word, ethnicity, if you genuinely believe that your ethnicity and your history need protecting, need amplifying, need to be disseminated so that the whole world can look and respect you while you walk around with your chest out, there's a real test. There's a real test for that. The real test is whether or not you are doing anything to get that belief established, made manifest. The same way there were people in Texas who honestly felt like this whole country needs to recognize when we got our freedom. They didn't just yell and scream about it. They didn't just write articles about it. I would say jump on YouTube, but they got started before the YouTube and the social media inventions. But they didn't just take to newspapers and magazines and books. They cracked heads. They went to board meetings. They got legislation done because they had a belief about something that they felt. FBA don't do that. FBA, they try to act like we gonna get this done. And they turn around and say, but not today. How about the couch? How about the sofa, family? How about the couch? So again, here's what I'm saying. If you're not going to do anything about making sure that your history is known, then what you crying and belly aching for? See, they don't understand when they come over here and they don't understand nothing about it. What have you taught? What have you pushed and promoted? Aside from where all my scamming ass niggas at. That's what you want to promote and then get mad when they say, well, we don't know about your culture. But except that. But hey, look, I'll give a pass. I'll give a pass. Let me get back to my real topic. Because I will say with conviction, when it comes to knowledge of what African Americans have done in this country, when it comes to that topic, nobody knows enough. White Americans, Black Americans, immigrant groups, nobody knows enough. Why? Because nobody's putting it in the school curriculums. So I would say that is an area that needs to be addressed. And from there, that would mean that there is real work to be done. There is organizing that should be done. There should be a concerted effort to change the curriculum. That means, since FBA says we the ones that did this, then you need to go down to the local school board. You need to make demands about what gets taught in the schools. And that's the difference between grassroots policy work and yelling on YouTube. Because so far, 9 years, 6, 7 years, I don't know how long they've been in existence. But so far, they just YouTube yelling. I should turn that into a song. Y'all just YouTube yelling. So again, as an ethnicity, because that's the word I prefer, we are an ethnicity. We are not all directly linked and by blood, so we are not a lineage. My lineage is on my family tree. That's genealogy. So as an ethnicity, there needs to be a greater effort put towards controlling the school boards, the school curriculums. There needs to be a greater emphasis on, dare I say, opening up our own schools. I don't like to go there because y'all know that's the Umar grift. But I will tell you this, there are African-centered, independent, Black-owned schools all across this country. We need to put more effort into supporting them instead of waiting for Umar to open the school that never opens. But anyhow, whether you call it grassroots, whether you call it protecting your ethnicity, if you want to protect the information that's out there, that's available, that's accessible, then that information cannot stay stuck inside a small group. You must get off the sofa. So like I said, go down to your local city school boards, make demands about what is put on the curriculum, what is taught in the schools. Look at what they're doing in Florida. Florida damn near made it illegal to teach Black history. And you putting all your energy on whether or not the president of Ghana can stand on at an African burial ground. YouTube yelling. That's all you doing. Now, again, we can have a separate argument about whether that curriculum should be framed. You can have an argument on, you can have a discussion on whether or not you want to call it African American history, history of the Africans in the West, FBA history, which I hope to hell never happens. But that would be at least a step in the direction of doing some work that y'all still ain't doing. But so again, it's the systematic work that is needed to be done, not jaw-jacking. But let me see what is going on in the chat room. We got a few more people in here. Let's see. Soul Sister says, are you willing to debate any of this rhetoric? I do believe I left the, I think I got the link live. You can come in and speak your piece if you want to. I don't like the term debate. I don't mind having conversations. But let's see. PCH Ride says FBA ADOS only running their mouths from the safe seats in their bedrooms. They leave if they lie enough, holler loud enough. Somehow the historians will rewrite the history books and rename us FBA. Like, again, if they believed it that much, why don't they get together and write a history book and then fight to see if they can get it put into the curriculum? Even KRS-One did that in New York because he had an idea and he decided, I want to make it manifest in reality. He didn't just rap about it and he didn't sit on the sofa. But hey, you know what FBA is really about. Doom Mega says, "So sister, chill. Sis, let's study and learn something. Why you always want to fight and debate? When you want to start people in positions of influence so our babies can have a chance." That's a good statement. Now, Black American Homeland says FBA, freedmen, and antebellum Black American descendants of Blacks existing in the USA before the Civil War are terms to differentiate from postbellum Blacks that arrived after the Civil War. I don't even have a response to that. Doom Mega says, when you guys gonna start having elected officials in a space where you can make a change? You're not doing that when it's who made hip hop all day. So, sister, we are waiting for you to come up with something that is worth commenting on. And again, the FBA, the political alignment of FBA, a brother just said in the chat, strategic vision, no tangibles, no votes. Okay, then you get nothing. That's why all the other communities, all the other marginalized communities, they've gotten stuff from the government because they say, we gonna vote and you gonna give us what we asking for. Lord of Slaughter says FBA has created a facade for their public appearance, but it's definitely a cultish hate group. Indeed, indeed, my brother. So again, let me get back to this. The chat is looking lovely. The chat, we're duking it out in the chat. I really should come over here to youtube.com/@the-proper-perspective because the chat is going crazy over here. So now we're going to move into this thing where Dana starts to talk about Pan-Africanism. Now, this one is, I got to say, I said before, I was a teacher, I taught English, but I'm also a history buff. I love facts. So I might have to take some issue with some of the stuff that Dana says in this next clip. But let me see if we can get to it. Let's see, here we go. We get into it. And now, let me share the screen. So check this out.
Let me just go back a little bit. Pause it right there for a second. Pan-African, people who call themselves a Pan-African, 99.9% of them are, quote unquote, of the foundational Black American lineage. Because there are not a lot of Africans, even the ones that migrate here or even Africa, call themselves Pan-African. They don't. It's the foundational Black American lineage that are the Pan-Africans. That the ones that call themselves Pan-Africans, they are by lineage foundational Black Americans. It's always been like that. Professor Smalls has always said he was a Pan-African. That has not changed.
So we're going to pause it right there. I'm so sorry that, honestly, I can't believe people can be so loose with facts. Now, I'm not saying that she's intentionally being deceptive. I'm not saying that she's intentionally lying. I am saying that the framing is wrong. The statement is factually incorrect. I can't speak to her heart, family. But you can't be no more wrong about that. So this idea, now just in case, let me recap, because I know, again, some people may not have heard it. She says Pan-African people who call themselves Pan-African is 99% of them are of the quote unquote foundational Black American. Now look, now again, here's what's really going on. What's really going on is she is just simply doing the FBA 52 fake out. Anytime that you can call African Americans FBA, let's do it. It doesn't matter if we're speaking on facts or unfacts or non-facts or lies. The goal is to simply pump that label into the ecosystem. So that's one thing that I take issue with. Now, this notion that 99% of the Pan-Africans have always been African Americans, have always been the Africans in the West who exist, who came up from slavery of the southern plantations of the contiguous 48. False. What y'all boys say? Fake news. Absolutely false. Incredulous. So let's get this crystal clear. Even granting a charitable reading. Let me say it this way. If you say that most Pan-Africanists in America just so happen to be African American, what I would say is, number one, that is a hollow point. That is a dead point. That is a nothing burger. Why would I say it's a nothing burger? If we are the majority of the people, then of course we would be the majority of the people in that group. The same way, there's way more white people than Black people in the country. There's way more white people on public assistance than Black people. Now, y'all know what they do with the funny math, with the racist math, to try to paint a narrative. I'm saying she's doing the same thing. Now, I don't know if she knows she's doing it, but the effect of that commentary, again, is false. So here's what I mean. If 99 out of 100 Black people in the country, in your list, in your sample size, are of the African American ethnicity, and only one is of the non-African American, only one is the Caribbean or the continental African, of course you would have more African Americans. That's a nothing burger. That's hollow math. But it don't just stop there. Matter of fact, what do they call it? They say that's a distinction without a difference. That's what they say. They say you're talking loud and saying nothing. Now, here's what I'll say. If you were even attempting to be more scholarly about it, then rather trying to draw down on Uncle Sam's 48 states plus 2, you would look at all the Black groups across the Western Hemisphere. Why? We all descend broadly from the transatlantic slave trade. Let's keep that in mind. There's too much myopic tunnel vision, as if we're the only ones that got transported over here to the West. So once you widen the lens to the whole Western Hemisphere, that picture changes significantly. And this is what I mean by the change. Pan-Africanists from across the whole Western Hemisphere, not just the United States. So this 99% framing. Because when you look at it that way, a huge share of history's most cited, that means popular, that means made known and being made aware of, Pan-Africanist figures, even when they were working, even when they got their reputation by working in the United States, they were not of the African American ethnicity. Marcus Garvey, Jamaica, C.L.R. James, Trinidad, George Padmore, Trinidad, Claudia Jones, Trinidad. Say their names, family. These are our ancestors. France Fanon was from Martinique. Amy Césaire, Martinique. Walter Rodney, Guyana. Kwame Ture, Trinidad born. Did a lot of his work in the US. Edward Wilmot Blyden, the Virgin Islands. And America even claims them. So you run actual math across the whole Western Hemisphere, the diaspora, instead of just the US. That's how you take a sample size. 99% of the Pan-Africans have the FBA lineage. No, they don't. That collapses. Poof. Several of the foundational Pan-Africanist thinkers in history aren't American at all. That's the truth. That's the facts. Whether you want to call them that little silly little set of 3 letters, or you call them what they actually are, African Americans. We are not the bulk. We are not the only. We are not the 99%. Now, I had a bit of a conversation with somebody before, and their position was, you're right, brother. We not really, what did they say? They said, that shows and proves that the Pan-Africanism is not something from us anyhow. It's foreign. It ain't got nothing to do with us. And I said, okay, bro, you're being obtuse. I don't know if it's intentional or not, but you're being obtuse. Because just because I can tell you that there are a nice chunk of Pan-Africans who don't come from the US, I can tell you there is a nice chunk of Pan-Africans who do. And there is a nice chunk of Pan-Africans who come from the continent. So Pan-Africanism isn't foreign to us when W.B. Du Bois is still in the list of one of the earliest and one of the greatest. What it means is Pan-Africanism itself as an ideology, as a school of thought, as an aspiration, is the manifestation of its own terminology. Pan-Africanism was built by all of us coming together to recognize how we can, could, and should work together. So again, I'm sorry, Dana, with the data, you don't have all the data, or you're twisting the data for a particular narrative. You can't leave out that much accurate information. That's just like when them European scholars tried to say, we looked at the bones, we looked at the mummies, and this evidence shows and proves that the ancient Egyptians were white. And then everybody started looking at the study and said, you looking at one graveyard in a whole country? And you're looking at a graveyard that dates to the time period where there were documented white folk in the country? And you saying that represents the whole vast majority of the national history? That ain't data. That ain't analysis. That's grift. That's lies. So that's what Dana did there. And again, I'm not saying that she did it intentionally. I'm just saying that ain't the right way to go about it, family. At all. Now, she also says reparations, and she says it's exclusive to us. It's for us and not for everyone throughout the diaspora. Now, again, myopic thinking. I was told not to say baby brain. I may still say it. But this is a very tunnel visioned way of looking at things. Let me see if I can find that clip and pull that up. I don't want you to say I'm making it up. Let me see. Where did it go? Let's see. We're going to get to it. We're going to get to it. So let me share the screen. Let me share the screen and see where we at. So listen to what she says. And we're going to talk about this exclusivity about reparations.
Two. Divide and conquer. I don't think Tariq Nasheed is dividing. but he is and has highlighted the need to make sure we understand our lineage, our culture, and our history. And when it comes to reparations, because this is how this whole thing started, that is for us and not for everyone throughout the diaspora.
So again, we're gonna pause that. Now I know somebody gonna really get upset with me. So you heard her. I think you heard her. Let me recap. She said, I don't think Tariq Nasheed is dividing. I'm like, wait a minute, hold on, what? She said, he is highlighting or has highlighted the need to make sure we understand our lineage. Okay, it ain't a lineage. We understand our culture. We understand our history. Now, I already said, okay, I want to be in agreement with that because we do need to understand our culture and our history. Now, again, I furtively disagree that Tariq Nasheed is not dividing us. He damn well is. But she says that when it comes to reparations, that is for us, not everyone throughout the diaspora. That's what I got a problem with. That's what I got a real big problem with. Now, there is a real conversation to be had on this topic. And we're going to get into it. Now, here's what I mean. Okay, again, she explicitly says she doesn't think he's being divisive. Here's what's interesting. Now, she did this video, what I said, back in 2025. I think it was November, but I can't remember the date. So she did this video. I think it's worth pointing out how strange it is. Because again, her video is a basic standard critique. It's not too far to the left. It's not too far to the right. It's right down the middle. Yeah, yes, I'm taking issue with some of her things, but I'm also in alignment with some of her things. She's taking issue with some of the things Tariq has said or has done, but she's also in alignment with some of the things that Tariq has said or done. And the FBA response is to actively announce, cancel her. Like they the Muslim Ummah receiving an official fatwa from the Ayatollah just for having a nuanced opinion. Again, that tells you something about this lineage. Oh, homeboy called it, what did he say? He said the lineage of evil. That tells you something about the mentality of a group that insists it isn't a cult. It isn't a movement. They don't have a leader, while treating any deviation, while treating any distinction, while treating any delineation from the group as betrayal. Now, see, again, that's not about whether I agree with her analysis, whether I agree with the movement. If a group of people can't survive criticism, well, there's a name for that. There's a dynamic for that. Now, as for whether the FBA is the only group, that's where we're going to get into the meat of it, with a valid reparations claim. I'm sorry to tell y'all, especially if you are still in the chat room and you are of the FBA persuasion, but that is a preposterous idea on its face. And I'm going to tell you why. If you have the mental discipline to actually clarify the claim, then perhaps what an accurate version of that statement would be is this. The specific African Americans that FBA insists on mislabeling are the group owed reparations from the U.S. government for the sustained institution of slavery within the contiguous 48 plus 2. Then I might agree with you. Now, if you tell me, well, that's all we're talking about, brother, that's a lie. And why I say that's a lie is because if you were solely focused on just the reparations claim that we are owed by the US government. You wouldn't care if somebody else says, I got a bone to pick with Uncle Sam. So what I mean is reparations is a universal concept. And if you know anything about geopolitics, then you would know that nearly every nation on this planet who has had any significant dealings with Uncle Sam, they got a claim on reparations. Now, just because you have a claim, you can't forfeit somebody else's claim. It's like if you're dealing with a serial rapist. The first person who was raped has a claim for justice against the rapist. But so does everybody else that came after that. Now, if the first person steps up and said, nope, it's just me. Nobody else got any claim. Y'all be quiet. Get out the court. You're a, let me slow down. That's what FBA does. See, African Americans, Pan-Africanists, we don't take that approach. FBA takes that approach. African Americans and Pan-Africans don't get their pennies in a bunch. We don't clutch our pearls because CARICOM is working to get reparations for the Caribbean nations. FBA does. So I'm here to tell you, I'm sorry. No, CARICOM isn't hustling in on what America owes those of us who came up from slavery, on what America owes the African American. CARICOM has its own legitimate claim against the transatlantic slave trade and the harm that it enacted to the Caribbean. And they are taking that fight to the United Nations. They're not talking to Trump. So again, if you are so hyper fixated on your reparations that you want from Uncle Sam, why do you care about another group of people talking to the United Nations? Either you don't understand, either you've been miseducated and misdirected, or you're doing this on purpose to try and poison the well. And I say that for all countries. Ghana has its own claim. Each of these claims deals with all of the countries, not just Uncle Sam, all of the countries who had a hand in the transatlantic slave trade. CARICOM is saying England owes us, America owes us, Portugal owes us, Spain owes us, Italy owes us. Ghana is saying Germany owes us, Portugal owes us, Spain owes us, England owes us. And the FBA is saying, no, you can't take my check. Everybody has a right to reparations if they have been harmed. You don't own the word. You don't have a monopoly on pain. You don't have a monopoly on reparations. You don't have a monopoly on justice. So this should be clearly, obviously distinguishable from whatever your domestic argument is. But if it was, and the only reason I'm talking about it is common sense ain't common no more. It should be common sense that they are different. But if it was common sense, you wouldn't have had those FBA thugs, clowns in New York trying to scream and shout at the president of Ghana. He wasn't here for our check. He was here for the UN check. How you gonna stop somebody from getting justice from the United Nations because you want justice from Uncle Sam? Now, I said something earlier because people don't like for me to say cult. People don't like for me to say that. I said, okay, I can't promise I'm gonna stop saying cult. I will say, okay, I did some research, family. Y'all want some more academic, precise terms? How about groupthink? A scholar, a researcher, a writer by the name of Irving Janis in 1972 came up with this term groupthink. He said that the defining symptoms map, well, no, I'm saying that. He listed some defining symptoms, but they map closely onto what's being described when you start dealing with, talking about, and interacting with the FBA crowd. He said there was the illusion of unanimity. He said there was direct pressure on dissenters. Like, we're going to have to cancel Dana with the data because she said something bad about Tariq. There are self-appointed mind guards who police the group's boundaries. What's your papers? Where you from? Soon as you start talking, really be FBA. Where was you born? That's policing group boundaries. Belief in an inherent moral righteousness. You see the FBA people all the time talking about, we better than everybody else. Ain't nobody did the kind of work we did. Again, FBA ain't did nothing. They trying to take credit for that, for what African Americans did. But you don't see African Americans puffing up their chest like that. African Americans are like, yo, we got a culture. We proud of our culture. Where you from? What's your culture? Let's talk. Let's build. FBA's, nope, my culture's the best one. And you better bow down and recognize. That's a belief in inherent moral righteousness. Now, there's another academic term that we could use, a structural companion term. It's called leaderless resistance. Now, that term is used in extremism research, research about people who are inside the, like if you're on the right wingers, the QAnon types, the Klan types. Unfortunately, the zeitgeist and the energy of the FBA seems to be pushing them towards this extreme type, where you have decentralized movements that are attached to intense in-group loyalty. We got to follow the code, family. And technically, they have no formal accountable leadership. Not that they don't have leadership. They have no formal accountable leadership. So if you don't want me to call it a cult, I'll slow down. I won't call it a cult. But they are practitioners of groupthink. Let me see what's going on in the chat. PCH Rise says, FBA has caused so much disdain and disgust for the term Black American that I no longer will identify as such. I will only identify as African American or American African. FBA outright disgusts me. Now I'm here to tell you, I feel that statement so much. And I didn't even realize that that's what I was moving towards. I have, for a very long time, used African American and Black American interchangeable, as if they are so synonymous. But now, with FBA throwing out all of this vitriolic, visceral hatred, I'm like, oh no, no, I'm an African American. Period, point blank. I can't stop y'all from using the label. Kuji Chagalia says I shouldn't even try to stop y'all from using that label. But the stink that y'all done created, I don't want to be a Black American. I want to be an African American. Now, Gears the Truth says Tariq is pimping FBA and he rocks them to sleep with entertainment. Is it any coincidence to turn the museum into an entertainment spot? The man rented a banquet hall and called it a museum, and FBA said, yay, we have accomplished something. It's the only accomplishment that they have achieved. Doom Mega says to Soul Sister, when you going to start opening businesses for the sisters so they don't need to depend on a shop that don't want them there? Why you want Shabazz channel? Hey, don't run off. I appreciate everybody in the chat room. You help keep the algorithm going. PCH Rise says, number 2, FBA has caused so much disdain. Okay, no, that's the same thing. Spud McKenzie, structure in which ways? None of our past leaders were politicians. I take issue with that. None of our past leaders were politicians. Again, politicians are some of our leaders. None of our grassroots, you might be able to say none of our grassroots leaders, you might be able to say none of our organization leaders were politicians, but I don't even know if that's factually true. But the people that we elect into office are our leaders. So you can't, there's no point of trying to separate them. You're doing what you're doing yourself and your community more harm. That's something that only happens in the Black community. White folk look at their elected officials as their leaders and they say, we're going to hold you accountable. All other groups, Chinese people, they elect Chinese Americans. They try to elect Chinese Americans to represent them in Chinatown, and they hold them accountable. Only Black Americans say, we ain't got no leaders. African Americans vote for leaders every 4 years. We vote for leaders every 2 years. Those are leaders. We need to hold them accountable. Reclaimer NYC says, I'm gonna be real. FBA only speaks to the Sambos in the community. Reclaimer says, these are people that had these feelings the entire time, and now they have someone to champion their feelings. Yes. Spud McKenzie says, Dr. MLK Jr. never advocated anyone to vote to get the civil rights passed. We address who is in power with our demands. Dr. MLK Jr. never advocated anyone to vote to get the civil rights passed. I'm a plug this. I don't know if you're historically accurate with that or not. That seems a little suspect, but I don't know that element of history. That would be interesting. We address who is in power with our hands. But okay, but if that is true, how did Dr. Martin Luther King address those in power? He didn't just talk to the media. He hit streets. He organized marches. Now, most people say they don't want to do no marching. Reclaimer says their feelings are not facts at all. Spuds McKenzie, Democrats are suggesting the couch today in Texas. Democrats are suggesting the couch today in Texas. Again, I haven't looked into what Texas is doing politically. It's hard to believe that Democrats are suggesting the couch today in Texas, but I will look into that. Lord of Slaughter says FBA been riding African American coattails. I wouldn't necessarily say centuries because they ain't been out that long. All right, I'm not gonna get into all of that. Mr. K says Tariq Nasheed is a career content creator, a charlatan. The FBA flock are wannabe content charlatans who cling on to Tariq, who is established to transcend into career content charlatans. Yeah, I'm with you on that. That is absolute. I'm not with the silly games. I love the conversations and the duking it out and the fights in the chat, but I don't have time to get to everybody's comment. But let's get back to Dana with the data. And let me say this, or let me try to say this. Let me see. Again, now if you're on Facebook, I hate to tell you this, but if you're on Facebook, my feed, my phone is gonna die. So I'm just gonna disappear in the middle of something. Come on over to youtube.com/@theproperperspective. So let's get to this. So you want to talk about business, making money, breaking bread. Let's hear what Dana has to say about business instincts, because we all like to say it's about, even when we talk about reparations, this is about our money, this is about livelihood. Okay, so that's the business. Let me add this to the stage. Let's hit the play button.
I have to go back a little bit here. I really don't care what you want to get. Because you got to get 3 or 4 or 5 people to replace one man. That says a lot. He made your documentary, he validated your documentary, him, Dr. Kaba, and others. But it's okay. You can take them out. And so, yes, and you should have supported his hotel in Ghana. Why not? What is wrong with a Black American business people being business minded, starting building an infrastructure here, whether you're getting your money up or whatever, and then investing into a business in whatever country in the continent of Africa? What is wrong with that?
Good question.
That's what you should do. We all should be striving for that. So it's for him to say, yeah, well, I helped him out with his little hotel, trying to belittle a man because you disagree or you did not like or he hurt your little feelings by saying some FBA people may be working with the government.
I'm gonna pause it there. I'm gonna pause it there. And let me see. Let me get back to the big screen. Big screen. So you hear what Dana says, what she's talking about. Couple of different things in there, but she's saying, she's bringing up the fact that when Tariq made the announcement, the proclamation, I'm removing Professor Smalls from the documentary, he had to turn around and then had to get 4 or 5 other people in order to replace one man. That alone says something about the stature of Professor Smalls. She says that says a lot. Why? Because she says he made your documentary. He validated your documentary. And she says, and this is the point I want to get into. She says, you should have supported his hotel in Ghana. We're supposed to be about business. Now, that's what I want to talk about. Because he didn't. Now, I had somebody tell me she's just throwing out terms. It's an ad hominem attack. No, it ain't. It's not an ad hominem attack. This is a valuable critique. This is something along the lines, what she is saying and talking about. After 2+ years of acting like you are a fan and a supporter, I'm talking about Tariq, acting like you are a colleague of Professor Smalls. She says Tariq never once publicly supported Professor Smalls' own business, at least definitively not the way that Professor Smalls effectively supported Tariq's. Tariq never told his audience, when y'all go to Ghana, don't that sound funny nowadays? He never told his audience, when y'all go to Ghana, stay at Professor Small's hotel. Not even during the time period when he was the Pan-African documentarian. The time period when he was building this brand, Griff, off Hidden Colors. He ain't get no shout outs. He ain't throw no recognition. So again, what I'm saying is, this is not her ad hominem attacking him. This is a legitimate critique about reciprocity. One of those African principles that nobody want to be associated with. One-way relationships don't really survive. Now, she goes on. Now, the next comment that she makes, you might be able to say there may be some ad hominemness to it, because later on she says, Tariq got that sassy ass energy. Now, those ain't my words, family. But what is she talking about? Because again, I'm not 100% convinced that it's ad hominem. It's everybody on YouTube, everybody on social media takes jabs. Now, y'all know that. But she says Tariq is trying to belittle a man because you disagree with the man. And she says he hurt your little feelings by saying some FBA people may be working with the government. Now, I talked about this the other day. I talked about this Tuesday. But she says that's what I don't respect from Tariq Nasheed, that sassy energy. Now she says that's why I'm calling him a grifter. Now I don't know if I fully agree with the sassy energy being part of the grift, but you know, again, that's her. That's commentary. But this is what, just like I opened up the show today and we were defining freedom fighter. And I gave very real examples. Perhaps I should define activists the same way with real examples. So that content creator can't get confused with activism. And here's what I mean, because an activist is someone who builds or sustains an organization that has infrastructure, something people can join, something people can attend, they can show up to, something that people can be assigned actual work to perform, to complete, real tasks, not something that you just watch and agree or disagree with. That's not activism. So I'll give you a couple of examples. I don't know how famous they are, but even today, to some extent, I don't necessarily know today, July 2026, but even up to like last year, Reverend William J. Barber II had begun organizing the Poor People's Campaign. He organized multi-state coalitions, direct action campaigns with a real operating structure. That's an activist. Now he ain't got no documentary videos. He ain't got no YouTube channel. He's not a content creator. He's an activist. Now you got another brother by the name Brian Stevenson. He set up what's called the Equal Justice Initiative. Now this brother built an actual legal organization that has literally freed wrongfully convicted people. And he built what he's calling the Legacy Museum. It's not a banquet hall. It's an actual museum. It's not an entertainment venue. That's an activist. You got Rashad Robinson, who set up Color of Change. Same thing with the word color. Color of Change organizes real corporate accountability campaigns with measurable, documented wins. It's not just to fill their pockets. You got Ella Baker, who was the organizer behind SNCC and SCLC. They actually had a full-blown working structure, at least regionally, if not nationally. They are the literal template for grassroots organizing itself. Those are activists. If y'all don't know who Fannie Lou Hamer is, you need to go find out. Now, I'm giving you all of these names of African Americans who took pride in their African Americanity, who still did work in the community, for the community, with the community. Fannie Lou Hamer built the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party as a real functioning electoral challenge, not just a statement of grievance. All of these people created organizations that have structure, that other people can plug into, join, and begin to work with. That's the difference between a content creator and an activist. Just like I said earlier, the difference between a freedom fighter and a content creator. So again, now if you still want to call him an activist, I would say by what metric? I don't even know what to say about the whole de facto leader. That's what I gotta remember my own research. De facto leader. So again, she's bringing into question this idea as to whether or not he's an activist, as to whether or not he participates in activism. And essentially, frankly, she says, no, he's not. Now she got canceled for that. They came for her head. She said he's not a leader of anything. And they came for her head, even though they themselves say he ain't the leader of anything. So again, the other brother said, the brother that called for the cancellation said, what could FBA have possibly done to make people think confusion, to make people associate FBA with COINTELPRO? Well, COINTELPRO at its heart and at the core is confusion. So you say he ain't the leader. She said he ain't no leader. You say she got to get canceled. Confusion. That's pure confusion. All at the same time, while Tariq still acts like he's the leader. Whenever someone criticizes FBA, Tariq jumped up online and told everybody, y'all look out for them brothers in Baltimore. And everybody started saying, we got to look out for them brothers in Baltimore. So when you talk about FBA, he's the leader. When you tell him he's the leader, they say he's not the leader. Then he started running from the title. Why? Because the moment you assign the title, you accept responsibility. So when Dana says he ain't no leader, well, if you are the leader, you got to stand in the kitchen. And you got to stay there, no matter how hot the seat gets. Now, my own framing, that was Dana's to some extent. I say either you're the leader. If you're not the leader, but you keep acting like you're the leader, either you're the leader or you're a narcissist, or you're a narcissist who wants to be the leader, but you don't want the ability. Now, I know someone say, all those words, that's an ad hominem attack. At this point, I be like, you know something, I'll own that. That might be an ad hominem attack. I'll own it. I apologize for the lapse in professional decorum, not for the ad hominem. But I will also say, again, because I like words, family, the dictionary is your friend. There are cleaner, more professional terms that I could use to pinpoint this exact same behavior without insults. So let us do that. Well, I think I already did that. What did I say? I said de facto leadership. De facto leadership is when you hold functional authority without a formal title. Or it's accountability. That's the big word. There's others, informal authority. That's the standard organizational behavior that contrasts formal titled authority. And then there's another one, asymmetric accountability. Claiming the influence of leadership while rejecting the responsibilities of leadership. See, all three of these are clean, professional, usable on air words that don't ring true with a personal attack. So no more ad hominem. The de facto leader with asymmetric accountability is your boy, Tariq Nasheed. So again, let me see where we at, family. Okay, we got a good time stretch here. Let me see. Who else is up in here? Shout out to Bawana. So Tanya Stanfield says he's not an activist. He says it himself. Okay, and that's cool. Again, he says he's not an activist. He also says he's not a leader. But then he says, I'm putting in the work, family. If you're not an activist, what work are you putting in? Shout out to PCH Rides. It says, I appreciate your work at Proper Perspective. Thanks for staying consistent. I will check out the rest of the video later. Got to run. Thank you. Peace, bro. So again, shout out to Tanya Stanfield. He's not an activist. He says it himself. He also says he's not a leader, but he directs everything. So if he's not an activist, what is the work that he's talking about when he says he's putting in the work? And why does he get so upset when people say you ain't doing nothing? If I'm an activist, I'm not supposed to be doing nothing. And that would be my response. I'm not an activist. I ain't supposed to do nothing. So Bawana says, well, Spuds McKenzie says, Mr. Pan-Africanist, let's talk about Bahamians actively in real time advocating for newly arrived Haitians to be deported to Haiti. That's a shame. Let's talk about the FBA doing the same thing. Now, Bawana says, if you want to talk about it, we can talk about it. I think Bawana gonna get you on that. Spuds McKenzie says, you're going against the only resistance to the government, which crushes your homeland. That's stupid logic. It's not exercising your critical thinking. Bawana says, Spud McKenzie, no one has helped Haiti outside of America like the Bahamas. Peace to Dr. Dennis Assault Winkler. Peace, cuz. Tanfield says he does put in work. We can all do our parts to all of this. I definitely agree with you that we can all do our parts. I don't know what the work is that he puts in. Feel free to enlighten me, because it could be that I just have my own tunnel vision. I'm looking at work. The examples that I'm giving is work that I see, that I recognize as work. And maybe I got tunnel vision. But if my metric is wrong, then let me know. Mr. K says, when Dana talked about Black Americans doing business ventures in Africa, she's talking about Pan-Africanism economics right there. That is Pan-African economics. That is absolutely true. So again, what's the metric? Now, let me see. Should I get into this? What is this? Let me get into this clip. So let me get into this clip from Professor Smalls. This is the doozy, so to speak. Let's see if I can get to it, find it. Almost there. Okay, so let me share the screen, get into this clip. Oh, that ain't it. That ain't it. Almost there, family. We getting there. So here we go.
FBA movement. Is it a movement or is it a lineage? Pick one, because it can't be both. So now I want to get into what Professor Smalls said.
As a whole, when you say I'm African.
And I did subscribe to Sell Africa to Africans. He has a really good channel. And I'm actually going to send him a Cash App because I'm using his content.
I live in America. Some of my people, they call themselves FBA and ADD and African American. Yeah, but all of them are just little fragments of a bigger thing called African. And if you deny the bigger thing, you denied your mother, you denied your father, you denied your grandmother, you denied your great father, you denied your great great father, then you have no existence except as a clone and a hologram of the enemy that oppressed you. A clone and a hologram of the enemy that oppressed you. Now, I'm not saying these things to sound cute. I'm trying to give you structure to understand oppression.
So we go pause there. We'll pause there. Get myself back to the big scene. And I'm gonna review some of the more comments. I got you. I'm gonna talk about your comments, Tanya Stanfield, Spud McKenzie, Bawana, and Mr. K. Let me break this down first. So let me break this down. So you heard Professor Moss. And just in case you're on one of the other platforms that's still live, you heard Professor Smalls to some extent. He said, I live in America. Some of my people, they call themselves FBA, ADOS, and African American. And by now, it's been morphing so much, we got even more names. I call them all the anything but African squad, but okay, that's me. But here's the thing. He says they are all just little fragments of a bigger thing called African. And if you deny the bigger thing, you deny your mother, you deny your father, you deny your grandparents. You have no existence except as a clone and a hologram of the enemy that oppresses you. That's the bomb. I wish I had those bomb effects. I need to look those up. That's a bomb right there, family. So here's what I say. So that's what Professor Small says in the clip that Dana with Data played. Now, just off my gut instinct, I'm like, okay, for me, that resonates. It resonates because it echoes what Malcolm X taught. It resonates because it echoes what Marcus Garvey taught. It resonates because it echoes what many Pan-Africanists have said and what most African Americans instinctively feel. A people without knowledge of their history is like a tree without roots. Now, like I said before, I used to play with the idea of calling myself Black American, and thanks to the FBA, I don't even want to do that anymore. I used to have this little joke, and I used to say African Americans are kind of like the Frankenstein of the American experiment. Why? Because if all you know is the small, teeny, tiny sliver of information that America chooses to let you have about you, your people, your culture, your history, your existence here and only here, then you are the end result of what they decided to give. That's the hologram that Professor Smalls is speaking of. That's the hologram that Professor Smalls is talking about. You are the end result of what they decided to buy. You are not the whole picture. You have no concept of the whole picture. That's what my gut tells me. But I might actually need some scholarly grounding. And so if you go looking into the research, I would say, you got brothers like Check Unto Diop who talked about this. And he talked about it in The African Origin of Civilization, the cultural unity of Black Africa. And he argues that African peoples across the continent and the diaspora share a deep, real, underlying civilizational essence, tracing to a common ancient origin, anchored in Kemet. Now, on this view, colonialism and the slave trade, neither colonialism nor the slave trade created an actual disconnection, so much as they obscured the awareness of our similarity, of our sameness, something that was always there. And we can go round and round with those words, but you see the unity of that idea. The unity is a fact about what people fundamentally are beneath surface differences. And that's what Professor Smalls is talking about. This is exactly the framework behind the clone and the hologram. Now, if there's one true underlying identity, rejecting it for a narrow label is its own self-erasure. It's why Marcus Garvey said, I would not give up a continent for an island. It's literally, not literally, I can't use that word no more. It's like Booker T. Washington, who said the thing about the fingers and the hand. And to the brother that's been challenging me on my page, I know he won't talking about, I know he was talking to white people and black people at that time. If you think you go freeze wisdom into a calendar, you are out of your mind. But then you got this brother named Paul Gilroy. In 1993, he wrote The Black Atlantic, in which he also talks about diaspora peoples being deeply connected. Now, he locates the connection slightly differently. He's not concerned with our ancient essence and similarity. He says that we have to have, or that we have already had, continuous historical motion. The ships, the ports, the migration, the music. All of these ideas move between Africa and the Caribbean and the Americas. He says that identity is made through that ongoing exchange, not inherited whole from one ancestral source, but it is relational and it is historical rather than essential and eternal. Now, I don't know if I 100% agree with that, but he is still entirely looking at this action, this movement, this connection. We are a live and vibrant and interconnected people at all times. We've never been that isolated. And even the stupid argument about who started hip hop kind of speaks to it. Now, I've said before, I hate the idea and the notion that hip hop is the quintessential example of African American culture. But aside from that, even when you look at hip hop is what it is today because blacks of different groups came together and unified to do something positive. It's not 100% from, I'm not going to get that. It's not 100% African American contributed. It's not 100% Caribbean black contributed. It is fusion. But the list goes on and on with the scholars who have said that. And one of the reasons I'm trying to enter these scholars into the public record is because I had another brother coming in here and he was scholar bombing. Now I appreciate him. I honestly do. I know I'm talking sarcastically, but I do appreciate what he was doing. He was trying to stand on the position that we are isolated. And he kept coming with all of these examples of scholars who have said we are isolated. Now, I never denied that this isolationism has a history. That's not what I have said. I said that as long as there has been a few people trying to say, we ain't got nothing to do with Africa, there's been more people saying, I beg your pardon. Look at this, look at this, look at this, look at this, sample after sample after example after example. You can make a claim, but you can't prove it. It don't hold up under pressure. And so who were the authors? I said, check onto D up. I said, Paul Gilroy. There's a brother by the name of Kwame Anthony Appiah. He wrote a book called In My Father's House. Now, I'll be frank with you. He's a little skeptical that race picks out anything biologically or metaphysically. You know, he ain't of that school of thought. I might stick with that. I like the idea of race. But he grounds his idea of Pan-African unity in, he says grounding your Pan-African unity in this, we are one essential African people. He admits that is standing on shaky grounds. But he does not go to the full extent to say we are isolated, disconnected, and we ain't got nothing to do with each other. He says that solidarity is something more important. He says that we have a sense of solidarity because we have a shared history of oppression. Now, you can call it colonialism, you can call it slavery, but it is a shared history of oppression. It is a shared experience of racism and white supremacy. It is a shared testament of political interest in liberation. The same practical conclusion, solidarity, may have some different foundations, live shared experience rather than claimed racial essence. But these, again, to me, are distinctions without a difference. But that's me. Again, the idea is, how should I say it? I'll say it this way. What was the course? The course I took, not the course, the mandate for the curriculum was cross-culturalism. You could not teach anything in any class without cross-cultural information and education. What does that mean? Well, what it meant for them and what it meant for me as the teacher. I did cross-cultural education. I kind of got in a little trouble for it because I didn't do it the way they wanted me to. They wanted every subject to include different things. So if you're a math teacher, they wanted you to teach a little history. If you was a history teacher, they wanted you to teach a little English. If you was an English teacher, they wanted you to teach a little math. I was like, that's cool. I don't know math like that. I do know ancient Egypt is the birthplace of mathematics. So in my English class, my cross-culturalism showed how the ancient Kemetic people were Black, just like we are, and they created math. That's cross-culturalism. That's connection, connectivity, continuity, continuum. That's what I did. So again, to me, that speaks to what Professor Smalls is talking about. We are not a hologram. We are not the fragment, although so many of us try to be, but we are not actually the fragmented pieces. We are the separate fingers combined together like that. But anyhow, I will move on. Because there's another section where Dana is again, I guess, so in this next section, Dana is taking issue with the FBA people, the FBA groups who are upset about this word COINTELPRO. I done had many brothers tell me, you better stop using that word. You can't call us COINTELPRO when the government already shut it down. And so Dana's point is, when she listens to Professor Smalls, she didn't, well, let me just play it. Let me play it. Let me pull this up. So where is it? This is a very short one. Oh, this is coming up right now. So let me share the screen and hit play.
What is the hologram?
Peace to PCH5s. So the question is, what is a hologram?
Let me fast forward this to this part, because this is the actual part when he uttered the words government, CIA, infiltrate, COINTELPRO stuff.
Meet Squibbler, the AI book.
Ain't that something?
We gotta get rid of these commercials.
Okay, here we go.
One day in Ghana under President Rollins. President Rollins and I were very good friends. I love that brother. God bless his soul. I so wish he was still here with us today. And he just lost his queen, Nana Kanadu Washerman, whose funeral I learned is at the end of the month. I'm going to miss the funeral, but when I get to Ghana in December, I will go with my group and pay my respects to the family. But we just need to do more things together. We need to learn more about one another's history. Because you can't fight a Tariq Nasheed unless you know history. Now, he's not a good historian, but he got enough facts because he's a good researcher that he can put you back, even when his facts is wrong. So you don't have to have the right facts. You have to have the right methodology to win a debate. But if you get the right facts, his methodology doesn't matter. You know, I can beat him down, but that'll just be another two black people fighting on the internet, and I refuse to do that. I've talked to him privately. I don't feel he has shown the respect he should have, given the conversations we've had about this issue. And I will find a way to even come out more publicly again. I've come out about it publicly many times, but it's a little thing in one way, but this internet makes it a big thing.
So we're gonna pause it there, and that's a good place to pause it anyhow. Before, let me see now. Hold on. So let me go back. I said I was gonna read people comments. So let me get back to this. Let me see. Where was it? I wanted to start with okay, hold on. I got one other one. I was gonna make a comment, but now I can't find it. Sorry about that. Let me see. The movies. So, okay, so Tanya Stanfield said the movies were a big part of opening up people's eyes. That's a great thing. That's one of his lanes. But you know, I understand you as well. Okay, I appreciate that last part for sure. Now, again, I haven't said, I don't disagree that the movies open up people's eyes. Now, there is a conversation to be had as to whether or not the information that was presented in the documentaries or the movies might be a better word, were appropriate, were factual, and can sustain historical criticism and factual data and scientific criticism. But that's another thing. They did serve to wake up some people. I don't begrudge anybody who says this is the thing that woke me up. It would be wrong for me to say to do that. If that's what you feel, I think I said this earlier. If that's what you think, if that's what oriented you into some type of wokeness, welcome to the club. That's what I was trying to say. I'm just glad you're woke. I would say just don't stick there. Don't sit there. He can wake you up with that information. As a matter of fact, Professor Small says he's a good researcher. He has some facts, but he gets his facts wrong. So yeah, you can wake up off of some of his work. Just like there are people who can get woke off of listening to Dr. Umar. But anyhow, so Spud McKenzie says Jesse Jackson and FBA advocated right there in Miami for Haitians to be accepted with the wet foot, dry foot policy, and not only Cubans, but you're telling me Bahamians, the only help Haitians had? Okay, Spud McKenzie, let me slow that down. Jesse Jackson, okay, and African Americans advocated for in Miami for Haitians. Now, I missed some of the conversation and some of the debate between them, between Spud McKenzie and Bawana. I don't think I saw a comment from Bawana that said African Americans didn't help. I think he said, other than African Americans, the Bahamians were the biggest group that helped them. But I might be wrong about that. I can't get too bogged down into that fight. Now, Mr. K says the fact that Dana said that's what Black Americans should do in regards to having business ventures in Africa. She's basically a proponent of Pan-African economics. And I don't even think that she knows that. Well, actually, I really don't think she knows that. She might know it, but I don't think she knows it. I don't think that her statement, I don't think she recognizes and realizes that that's what her statement means. But that is what her statement means. Because you should be, no matter what side of the aisle you fall on, you should be advocating Black-owned businesses that benefit the community and put money in Black people's pockets. Or else you are doing some COINTELPRO stuff. So Bawana says Jesse Jackson talking from a microphone or some African Americans carrying placards is the equivalent of share tangible resources in a small country. Do you know Haitians have free medical care here? Okay, y'all really getting into a conversation I don't have knowledge of, so I'm gonna bypass some of that. Let's see, let me see what else is going on in the chat. Right, so let me see. So again, make sure you hit the like, share, and subscribe buttons on this channel. Come to youtube.com/@the-proper-perspective. Hit like, share, and subscribe. I know Tanya Stanfield said something about, I missed that comment. So don't go there with the hip hop thing. I'm gonna go there. I'm gonna go there. You can play around with the words on hip hop all you want to, but Tariq is dead wrong for that hip hop documentary that he did. But anyhow, let me get back to the Professor Small's commentary. Because he actually said, he said, you don't need the right facts. You need the right methodology to win a debate. That's one of the sharpest things. It's one of the reasons why I say I really don't do debates. I don't like having these so-called debates because most people don't understand what a debate really is. Now, we can have a difference of opinion and we can just converse. But too much of the online culture is, let's have a debate. See, I won, I beat you. You beat somebody in a conversation. That's what you beating your chest about. But anyhow, let's talk. Because this is the thing that I want to get to. Later on in the clip, Professor Small says, I probably should play it because somebody's going to tell me I'm lying. Professor Small says, most people don't even know what FBA is.
But you got to remember, the masses of our people ain't paying no kind of attention to Tariq. The people who go with me on the trip to Africa, the working class people, the middle class people, the retired people, they don't give a shit about that. And even the young people who go to Africa, they're already Pan-Africanists. They ain't even thinking about him. They're angry with him. And I tell them, don't be angry. Find out what is stimulating that. Because if you don't find the causation, you're not going to solve that problem. And the cause is we need to do more together. The immigrant African come to America, and the African Americans who've been there for the last 500 or so years have to find ways to do more together. And it isn't just on the new arriving African. It's actually more on us. We have no place where we say, here's your reception place. What do you need to get on your feet? We have a few, but nothing significant. You know what I mean? There are churches that do this in our community. But we need to have some sort of African reception kind of organization all over America. So wherever our people land, right now, our people are being brought in by the American government, the refugee department and the Homeland Security people, and they teach them not to come to our community.
That is true.
I'm telling you the truth. There are people from the continent who come into the U.S. State Department are taught not to associate with us, that we are drug dealers and we are troublemakers and things like that. So people, you trying to survive, you just got to America, thank God, and you're trying to get a job. You think you're going to go in and mess with the dope dealer and the troublemaker, you're going to have nothing to do with that. Now, as time go on and you learn better, you're caught in an isolated situation, and there isn't much you can do there. I remember, I didn't know this.
Okay, so I'm going to pause it there. We're going to talk about that, but I'm going to talk about this this unfortunate soul in the chat room. Mr. Washington, this is for you. Now, Mr. Washington says, nobody knows about Tariq except for you and Professor Smalls. Then why are you talking about him and trying to discredit him with unfounded theories? Now, Mr. Washington, are you honest? Is that an honest comment? You really think that's what I said? Did I say nobody knows about Tariq? I didn't say that. What I said was people ain't paying attention to Tariq. What I said was most African Americans don't know about Tariq. I didn't say nobody knows. Now, as to whether or not I'm trying to discredit him with unfounded theories, What are the unfounded theories? I've been meticulously going over. And here's the thing. This is what I mean when I say groupthink, when I say cult-like behavior. I have spent today's show saying, here's what a freedom fighter is. Tariq is not. That's not an unfounded theory. That's not even discredit. That's not discrediting him. If you wanted to say I'm discrediting anybody, I'm discrediting people who say he is more than what he says. So I'm rooted in facts. But thank you for your contribution to the conversation. Let's keep that algorithm jumping, family, and like, share, and subscribe. If you got any of those hype points, give me a few hype points, would you please? Now, anyhow, so you heard Professor Smalls. He made quite a few comments that are very important. He said that, now again, he did say the masses of our people ain't paying attention to Tariq. He actually said, like, the brothers and sisters that he deals with, that he works, that he teaches and mentors and takes to Africa, they already Pan-African, so they already know what's up with Tariq. But he said, if you want to get to the heart of it, then you got to figure out what is the cause of either the issues with Tariq or the tensions between the quote unquote immigrant Black community and the native born and the African American community. Get to the cause. And he points at the cause. And y'all FBA types like to say, anytime we point to the cause, y'all say we not allowed to say that. So he's pointing to the government. He's pointing to the CIA. He's pointing to the COINTELPRO. And the FBA folks say, you can't say that. Don't talk about them. Now, come on. So if we don't put the blame on Uncle Sam and all of his tactics, then we'd have to put the blame on your de facto leader. I know you don't want that. But anyhow, Professor Smalls goes on to say, it's more on us to set up something because we're already here. It's more on us to establish a reception system so that we can greet our brothers and sisters who come from other locations and help them get on their feet. Now, I know that gonna burn the feathers of FBA, but I ain't mad at that concept. But and here's one of the reasons I'm not mad at that concept. Because he's speaking to, when he's pointing to something, he says when they come over here, who do they have to rely on? They have the government. Now, I know some people, that's an unverified claim. You can't show me no program with the government where they're doing that. Even Dana says that's true. And if you are an FBA and you say that's not true, that's a new position for any of us to be taking, because that is a position that most African Americans, whether they were Pan-African or not, have been articulating for decades. And there are immigrant Blacks who confess, yes, they told me to stay away. So now if you capping for that couldn't happen, then you capping for COINTELPRO, defunct, de facto, or not. So the underlying sociological pattern is well documented. But here's my own lived anecdotal information. I want to mirror this. And there's some slight differences, but still, I'm going to say, when I travel outside of the contiguous 48 and I touch down, I ask whoever I can. Now, I'm not going at the behest and with the assistance of government officials. So I don't necessarily get a chance to talk to the state representatives. I talk to the locals, hotel staff, tour guides, taxi drivers, even some of the people that work in the airport. I ask them, where do I go? Where do I not go? What do I avoid in order to not get in trouble? And they tell me plain as day. They tell me what areas to go to. I had people back in the day told me, don't go to Kingston. You can go to Jamaica all you want to. Go to Ocho Rios. Don't go to Kingston. I went anyway. But this is what I'm saying. People are always providing this kind of information. Now, aside from just me personally being stubborn, some say obstinate, some say stupid. You went to Kingston by yourself? Is you crazy? Taxi driver told me not to get out the car. I did it anyhow. But what I'm saying is, it's the natural ecosystem of traveling. Whether you're traveling for a permanent location or you're traveling for temporary. You get somewhere new, you ask people, you ask whoever you encounter in your trip. You get warned off of certain areas of certain groups. I've gone to Ghana, and brothers of the Ga ethnicity told me, watch out for them Fante. And brothers of the Fante ethnicity told me, watch out for the Ga. That's just how newcomers get oriented anywhere they go in the world. Now, whether I believe them or not, that's on me. But once I get there and I'm being told this, like I have no frame of reference. What frame of reference might I have? I listen to Ghanaian music. I know Ghanaian artists. That ain't enough. But the music that I do hear, the music that I do listen to, I ain't heard a Ghanaian artist say things like, come over here and we gonna shoot you. Now I done heard hip hop artists, if you ain't from here, don't come here. Stay out of here. You might die here. I ain't saying it's right to make a judgment, to make an assessment about that. But what I'm saying is, if you got a particular element of your culture that you always pump and promote, and then other people hear it and say, ugh. And they ain't got nobody else telling them anything different. All the white folks saying, yeah, don't watch out for them. How you think they're gonna act? This is why Professor Small said we need our own reception system. We need to be able to meet our brothers and sisters, our cousins, if you don't like brothers and sisters, and familiarate them and associate them and orientate them, if that's even a word. So Small's actual point underneath it all is that until we build real institutions, organizations, agencies, committees, something, mutual aid societies, something that has structure, something that can organize interactions between the immigrant brothers and sisters and the native born brothers and sisters, we might just stay stuck in the stalemate. Now, I'm not even sure that we're in a stalemate, because it really does look like it's the FBA versus everybody. There's plenty of African Americans that commonly interact and entangle and engage with immigrant Black communities. I might be one, as again, my anecdotal example, my dentist. I got a dentist from the Ivory Coast. I got a mechanic from Liberia. I got a big homie from Somalia. Like, I'm the anecdote. But if we don't do something, then we may stay stuck in a stalemate where each side is convinced that the other is mad at us, angry with us, scared of us. It's a two-way street, and the only way out is to do what Professor Small said. Do more things together. And that doesn't mean one side gets to demand that the other assimilate entirely into its own cultural reference points. If unity is going to be built, if solidarity is going to be, some people don't like unity, although unity ain't conformity, but unity, solidarity, togetherness. If it's going to be built, it has to be built around something like, well, that may not be factual. I want to say it should be built around something like sports, but that's not factual. But We've seen how sport brings people together. That's one of the common pitches. Even racist white people get along with black folk at a football game. So it has to go, but it has to go both ways. You don't get just to say, well, they need to learn what American football is. And you don't ever want to show up to a soccer match. No, it's going to have to be both ways. Now, because again, like I said, when I go places, I get the warnings. Tourists that go to Rome, they get warned about specific neighborhoods. They'll tell them, don't go to Termini Station. When you get to Rio de Janeiro, they'll tell you, look, there's a couple of favelas you don't want to go to. In Mexico City, they say, watch out for the colonias. Now, none of this implies that a government conspiracy is out there against specific neighborhoods or communities, although you can make that argument. That's just an example of locals passing on risk information. First time I went to New York, people said, don't go to Times Square. You get your pockets picked. So it happens all the time, whether it happens at the behest of the government or just at the sheer level of locals providing information. When people come to Richmond, Virginia, they say, well, where am I supposed to go to have some fun? And people will be like, don't go to such and such. So again, I'm not saying that there isn't tension. I'm simply saying the tension is both ways. And if you want to have this pissing contest about who started it, I'm just going to say, grow up, get off the playground. The fact is, the tension needs to be cut. Now, so this next section, I may skip that. So this, again, this unity, consciousness, and let me see. Now I may not be able to find this next clip. So let me slow it down. Let me see. So later on, and I'm not going to be able to find this clip. It's not coming up. I'll talk about this rather than play her clip. There's a section in the video where she says, and this is something I've heard many FBA people say. She says, see, there's a difference. There's a different type of Black immigrant from the 90s to today. Prior to that, the Black immigrants coming here, they were very much conscious of what was going on here with Black America, with African Americans. It was more of a unity conscience. But the new Africans, starting from the 1990s on up, they different. They're about self. Yeah, that's real. That's a problem. Now, this is Dana talking. This is Dana talking. This is one of the talking points, one of the bullet points of FBA. That's why I say it's so strange to me that FBA themselves want to counsel her for a couple of critical comments on Tariq when she's upholding the majority of their platform. But you know, step out of line in a cult. So this is what I got to say to that idea. Now, here's my actual, what is it? My thoughts, my pushback, my instinct. I don't have the numbers. I'll tell you that right now. I don't have the data. I don't think they do either. But my actual pushback, you might be able to argue that there is a difference in political consciousness. And I'll go with her dates, pre and post 1990s. And even if you want to, attach it to the immigrant community, here's what I'll say. You also got to admit that the same lack of political awareness is just as prevalent among the African American community as among the immigrants. Nobody today, as a whole, is as politically conscious as the generations of the 60s and the 70s. The 60s were in the streets, the 70s were taking guns to the police. We were trying to establish the Republic of New Africa. That kind of consciousness is gone everywhere. So, this idea of pinning a different type of consciousness on the immigrant blacks is just as applicable to the rest of us. So, again, nobody today as a whole, as a conglomerate, is politically conscious as our elders and ancestors were. Now, I could point out to you some pockets. There's definitely been some Pan-Africanists. There's definitely been some Afrocentric or African-centered thinkers who have maintained the avant-garde position of consciousness and political awareness about this government and oppression and white supremacy. But for the most part, when because of that persuasion start talking, a whole lot of African Americans say, there you go with that black shit. Why don't you just be quiet? Why don't you just be happy that you're here in America? That's the overwhelming zeitgeist of political consciousness. So again, it's the Pan-Africanists, it's the Afrocentric people who've been yelling and trying to raise consciousness precisely because most people aren't there yet. The fact that you can get woke off of a Hidden Colors documentary means you ain't there yet. So when she says immigrants are all about self, we not. So most of the modern day hip hop generation, at the very least of African Americans, are all about self. Get the bag, secure the bag. It don't matter what you do. It don't matter what you say. You can't be hating on the next man. Stop pocket watching. We all about self. Most of us didn't support Colin Kaepernick, although he stood up for us. Most of us support Jay-Z, although he said, F y'all. We root for people who became millionaires and billionaires at our expense, at the black community's expense, and we defend them anyway. And some of us gonna turn around and say the immigrant is all about self. If political consciousness is the metric being used to draw a distinction between groups, again, a distinction without a difference, that criticism doesn't hold. We are in the throes of selfishness in this country, dare I say, all across the planet. So you can't pin that on one particular group. So again, that's the point I'm trying to make. I tell you what though, family, I'm not finished. I'm surprised that I'm not finished. As I look at my points, my bullet points and whatnot, I'm like, man, I'm only halfway finished. But I'm going to be finished in a hot minute. I'm going to read through some of these comments. So let me see. I can't say your name. Ra Faces. I hope it's not Rafesis, but Rafesis says no, the sellouts who organized them were punks for taking advantage of their fear. Kind of like the bootlickers who's speaking on our behalf for the dominant society. Okay, well, I don't even know what that means. Again, Mr. Washington, brother, my brother. Nobody said people don't know who Tariq is. If that was the case, literally, clearly, I wouldn't be on here talking about it. Nobody said people don't know who he is. People, what we are saying is, number one, first and foremost, the FBA zeitgeist, the FBA movement, the FBA cult, it's not as big as FBA themselves think it is. What Professor Small said was, most people ain't paying attention to him. What I will say, I'll go a step further, especially on TikTok. Most of the young generation, they like TikTok more than they like Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, or anything else. I've seen them on TikTok make countless videos. I just found out about this Tariq Nasheed guy. He's crazy. So again, yeah, a lot of people still know. That's not even a jab. That's not an insult. That's not an insult. That's not a dagger. That's not putting him down. That's just a fact. There are a lot of people who are doing a lot of work, whether you like them or not, whether you agree with them or not, and they are not known by the whole community. Most of the people that I read off in my lists tonight, most of the freedom fighters, there's plenty of African Americans that ain't never heard of Abiy Jabbar. I said his name wrong. I'm sorry. There's plenty of African Americans that don't know who H. Rap Brown is by his American name or his Islamic name. That's not a dagger. How you so in your feelings about that? And I would agree with with Bawana, Mr. Washington, LOL. Something ain't clicking right. That's what you just co-signed Small for. Rewind the video. I didn't rewind the video. I got my notes right here. I know what I co-signed. I said people, he said a lot of people are not paying attention. Now look, see, here's the thing. That's not a data point. Because you can make a lot of people are paying attention to Tariq Nasheed. And a lot of people are not paying attention to Tariq Nasheed. Neither one of those really cuts anything. They're just obvious generic statements. There are a lot of people that pay attention to Tariq Nasheed and agree with him. There are a lot of people that pay attention to Tariq Nasheed and furtively disagree with him. Now, I never said that Tariq was wrong for making a hip hop documentary, or rather, let me say it this way for clarity. I did not mean to imply that Tariq was wrong for making a hip hop documentary. I said what I meant to imply was the essence, the thesis of the documentary is dead wrong. Well, like I said, brother, Mr. Washington, I'm very disappointed in you. So at least we agree on that. Now, Rafisi says if you're doing player moves and people are hating it, what does that make you, sir? Straight up player hater. Okay, I don't mind being a player hater. I don't like players anyhow. I like leaders. I'm not a leader hater. So Mr. Washington says James Small dealt with Tariq. You really think he is speaking truthful? You really think he's not? He has said that there are things that he agrees with Tariq. He has said that there are things that he disagrees with Tariq. He has said he don't like how Tariq handles certain things. Yeah, I think that's pretty truthful. I think that's an even keeled, balanced, Ma'at-like statement. Now, PCH Ride says they allow the Ukrainians, the Boers of South Africa, into America and give them money and shelter only because they are white. They have never had the same love for Black people and never will. I'm with my people. Now, I agree with you 100%. PCH Rides. The thing that is disappointing for me, the thing that is frustrating for me, is that FBA can have so much smoke for other black groups. And mum's the word. They don't have anything to say about the Boers coming to America, about the Ukrainians coming to America, getting money from America, but they certainly get hot under the collar when they think that a Somalian got $1. I need to throw that into a rhyme. Mr. Washington, nobody FBA says that. You don't know what you're talking about. You do not follow any FBAs, I can tell. Well, I'm not necessarily sure exactly what you're referring to when you say nobody in FBA says that. I will agree with you that I don't follow any FBAs. I stopped following FBAs, but I don't have to follow them because algorithms do what they do, and the timeline keeps showing me FBAs. The timeline keeps showing me FBA commentary, so I don't have to follow them. The other day, I did a review of Water God. He is an FBA. I've done multiple reviews of what Dana with the data. She certainly acts like FBA. I've done reviews of Tariq Nasheed. Now you don't get no more FBA than that. So I don't have to follow them. I wouldn't want to give them the social media click. Tanya Stanford says, "Yep, burning my feathers." I do apologize, my sister. And again, because I missed the exact moment it came down, I don't know what you're saying, LOL, but true too. But hey, Bawanda says the government is the largest employer. Okay. Basically recruit, let me see, Rafisis, basically recruit melanated, okay, I'm not gonna use that word, to perpetuate what was already established. Yeah, okay, I don't even know what that means. They do not even on the continent itself. It's not new. I don't know what that's about. I hope that's not the same old trope about people on the continent not being Pan-African, because if that is, that's a stupid and ignorant one, and I've debunked it multiple times. Let me see what else is going on in the chat before we take a ride. Let's see. PCH Ride says, these Negroes love the Western slave names inherited from nasty sex farms and plantations where they proudly claim they originated from. They are a very proud amalgamation of grapers whom they honor. You know, it is sad to say, but that's true. I like to shout out an African-American queen. What was her name? Queen something. I'm forgetting her name. Queen Mother Moore. Queen Mother Moore said, get yourself a good African name and get rid of this other stuff. I ain't gonna repeat. I ain't saying that was her verbatim quote. And you know what's so funny? These FBAs with all these, they trying to show and prove and beat their chest about all this Americanity. Their de facto leader got an African name. Now, Solar Sapien says, been listening to hip hop all my life. Never heard a rapper tell nobody from abroad not to come here. You working overtime to sell your narrative, bro. I didn't say from abroad. I said you have rappers that have made songs that say don't come here, that say don't come to this neighborhood. That's not a narrative. That's true. What I'm saying is, if somebody from abroad was to listen to that, then they would have a reason to reconsider. Mr. Washington, Tariq himself entangled with immigrants all the time, especially the ones that he lives in house with. So let me see. Well, Ross, since you say all y'all owe is an A whooping, go get them. Go do it. Again, just conjecture. You mad because I'm pointing out facts. Let's see what else. So Tanya says, I absolutely agree with that for sure. We are not focused as we used to be. And again, I would say, see, here's the thing. Here's what nuance allows you to do. Like I said before, if you say to me that whatever iteration of Tariq Nasheed you encountered woke you up, then welcome to the party. So if you say his hidden colors woke you up, I'm glad for that. If you say the FBA zeitgeist woke you up, I'm glad for that. I'm glad you're woke. I'm glad you are now politically astute, politically aware. Now, I reserve the right to offer my criticisms. And my criticism would at least in part be, if Tariq woke you up and gave you political consciousness, what are you doing with it? Because voting for the couch ain't politically conscious. But perhaps that's another story altogether. Now, PCH Ride says FBA has to figure out their story every day. Only false pride and ignorance drives them to reimagine African-American history 24/7, 365 days in a year. And I would imagine that's probably got something to do with why they attack every African-American that does something even remotely close to Pan-Africanism or political activity. Tanya says, we are now. We were not like that before. We are tired of their disrespect and supposed to keep going hard for them anyway. No. I see it in my field constantly. They are worse than the whites. Okay, now again, I'm not going to deny your lived experience. I haven't encountered that in my field. I haven't encountered that in the halls of education that I was in. Like I said, I gave off a list. You know, I have interacted with people on the job. I have interacted with people off the job, in the community. I'm good. I can't speak to that. But what I can say is, I would not throw the label of them hating us or whatever it is onto the whole group, because I worked with some bad ones. I worked with some bad Europeans. I work with some bad European Americans. I don't throw that on the whole group of the race. But that's me. I like nuance. And okay, Tom, you say the medical field. Again, I have extensive background with the medical field. My father, may he rest in peace and Black power, was treated and cared for in the medical field by quite a few immigrant Blacks. And they cared for him dearly. And they not dearly, but they cared for him. They paid attention to him. They treated him. There was no disrespect. They were tending to his wounds and the whole nine. So shout out to Bawana, who says, proper perspective. This was a great live, brother. Good job. Thank you. And then you got the idiot. So I'm not gonna read. Look, I'm not gonna read. I love y'all for being here, but I'm not gonna read negative statements. Now, if you could be mature, if you be mature and adult, like again, shout out to Tanya Stanfield, because she's being mature and adult about her differences. I'll read those. PCH Ride says, it's not possible to have a historical debate with lost Africans. They're lost, whether they be from America or the continent or the Caribbean. If you lost, you lost. Mr. K says, oh, get this. Tariq even claimed Queen Mother Moore never claimed to be a Pan-Africanist and wasn't a Pan-Africanist. All I can say is, again, my biggest gripe with Tariq is the lies, is the deceptions. So I can't say nothing about it. You can continue to agree with him all you want to. Clearly, I can't change your mind. I'm not trying to change your mind. I'm trying to open up a space. I'm trying to hold space for people who have recognized that there is a problem with FBA. Dr. Dennis Assault Winkler says, agreed. PCH Ride says FBA doctrine from its first words to its last ultimately boils down to lost Africans in North America. You're blind, baby. You're blind to the facts, like Flavor Flav said. Lost in the triple stages of darkness. A little bit of my hip hop comes out. But again, so brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to finish everything that I was going to do. I'm going to continue the Dana with the data breakdown next week. Yeah, I've been up here a long time and I already know what's going to happen. So I appreciate everybody for paying attention. I love this chat room. I love the fact that you in here duking it out with me. I'm not mad that you taking umbrage with things that I'm saying. I'm not mad that you have a different opinion than me. I appreciate it. I enjoy the back and forth. Now, I'm going to disagree. I'm going to correct what I think needs to be corrected. I'm going to skip over the trolls and the bots. But thank y'all for paying attention. Thank y'all for liking, sharing, subscribing. Leave some comments on the video page when this is over. And thank you. I most definitely will. Shout out to you. So, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, Black people of the Pan-African world, this is your brother Shabazz, sometimes Professor Shabazz, but I am retired and I'm trying to enjoy my retirement. This is the proper perspective. I don't even have a closing. I'm just going to say like, share, and subscribe. And so you will catch the lies. I will be back next Tuesday for sure. I might be here Saturday with my cousin, Dr. Dennis Assault Winkler, but I'm not sure. We got to talk because I think we got a family reunion this weekend. So that might, throw some monkey wrenches into it. Shout out to PCH Rides. So again, Tuesdays and Thursdays, 5 o'clock is when I do this. Make sure you tune in. I try to go live on everything, but YouTube is the official place for me. So, like I said, Facebook died, TikTok's about to die. Shout out to you. Appreciate you. And I'm going to get up out of here. Peace.
Shabazz, break it down with the proper perspective. So much controversy and a lot of deception. You don't know who's coming through with the light and reflection, and whose mouth is mumbling, trick knowledge deceptive. Shabazz, break it down with the proper perspective. So